Hello everyone. In today's video I bring you an impactful and transformative story that will shake your deepest beliefs. Let's meet Calixta Wren, a practical and skeptical woman who, after dying for 7 minutes during surgery, experienced a spiritual journey that revealed secrets that religions don't want you to know. What she saw and heard on the other side will challenge everything you believe about life, death, and the purpose of our existence. So leave your like, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any incredible content like this. Get ready to be excited and expand your vision of the universe. My name is Calixta Wren, and I have always been a practical woman. I grew up in Chicago, in the heart of a city full of noise, challenges, and cold logic. Daughter of working parents, my life was built around suits, numbers, and rational explanations. I never considered myself particularly religious. He attended church from time to time, more out of tradition than belief. For me, the universe was like a giant machine, with gears that could be studied and understood. Any idea of a higher power seemed fanciful, a consolation for the weak, as I used to think. All of this changed in a day that started out in an absolutely ordinary way. I woke up with a sharp pain on the right side of my abdomen. I thought it was something simple and maybe indigestion, but as the hours passed, the pain became unbearable. "You need to go to the hospital, Calixta," my friend Maya insisted on the phone. "It's not normal. It could be serious." Reluctantly, I accepted. The hospital was busy as always. Doctors and nurses hurried past, with serious expressions, while patients waited for care. I was quickly examined, and the diagnosis came like a hammer blow: acute appendicitis. "We will need to operate immediately," said the surgeon as I signed the consent papers. His expression was firm but reassuring. "It's a simple surgery. Nothing to worry about." I smiled nervously. Simple was what I wanted to hear. Lying on the operating table, I watched the bright overhead lights. The anesthesiologist told me to count from 10 to 1. I started, 10, 9, and then emptiness. When I woke up, I didn't know where I was. My first impression was that something was wrong. I didn't feel pain, nor the weight of my body. Instead, there was a lightness, a sense of peace that I had never experienced before. I looked down and saw something that stunned me: my own body lying on the operating table, surrounded by frantic doctors. Something unusual was happening. I was there, but also, I wasn't. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of a journey that would change my life forever. I watched, without fully understanding what was happening. There I was, or at least my body, lying on the operating table. The medical team worked frantically. I heard fragments of sentences: cardiac arrest, charge at 200 joules. We don't have a pulse. The scene should have been desperate, but I wasn't afraid. On the contrary, a deep calm enveloped me, as if everything was exactly as it should be. It was the first time I realized that there was a clear separation between my physical body and who I really was. There was no pain, no weight, no limitations. I was floating. I moved easily, as if gravity didn't exist. I tried to get closer to the operating table, but at the same time, something seemed to pull me away. It was a gentle force, almost like an invitation. I remembered the stories I had heard about people seeing their own bodies during near-death experiences. I always thought this was nonsense, an invention of delirious minds. But now I was part of that scene, witnessing myself from a point of view I never imagined possible. "We're wasting time," I heard the surgeon's voice. Tense, he looked at the anesthesiologist, hoping for a solution. My heart should have been racing with terror, but again there was no negative emotion, just curiosity. I watched as if it were all a movie, a spectacle that I couldn't change, but that I needed to watch. Then something changed. A glow, initially discreet, began to appear in the corner of the room. It wasn't the cold light of hospital lamps. It was warm, alive, and mesmerizing. It grew in intensity, as if it was getting my attention. I knew it was time to step away from the scene. Without any effort, I began to move toward the light, as if it were an anchor to which I was drawn. Down below, the team continued working. I felt a brief impulse to return, but it was immediately silenced by that presence. The light was not just luminous. She conveyed a feeling of pure love, of belonging. How to resist? Floating out of the room, I noticed the sound of the hospital disappear, replaced by a comforting silence. Everything around me began to change. and I knew I was crossing a boundary that separated the physical world from something much larger. As I walked away from the operating room, I felt the light become more intense, more enveloping. It wasn't just a brightness. It was a living force that seemed to know every fiber of my being. There was a comforting warmth, but also a vibration that ran through me, filling me with a sense of completeness I had never experienced. It was then that I realized I wasn't just approaching the light. I was stepping into it. The space around me transformed into something that seemed infinite. What was once just a cold hospital room became a pulsating tunnel, filled with colors I've never seen on Earth. It wasn't just colors. They were sensations. Each tone seemed to carry an emotion, a meaning. A deep blue brought me indescribable peace, while vibrant gold enveloped me in pure love. Where am I going? I thought, or perhaps I just felt, as words seemed unnecessary in this new state of existence. The movement through the tunnel was not something I consciously controlled. It was as if I was being gently carried by a current, with no resistance. I looked back, curious to see what I had left, but the operating room and my body were no longer there. All that existed was the tunnel and the light. As I walked forward, I realized that the absolute silence I had felt before wasn't exactly silence. There was a music, or rather a harmony, that permeated everything around me. It was like the sound of crystal-clear bells, mixed with a distant choir. It wasn't an ordinary song. It was something I not only heard, but felt in every part of me. It was at that moment that I noticed the shapes. At first glance, they were just glows inside the tunnel, but as I got closer, these lights began to take on a kind of shape, not physical but noticeable. They were beings, or rather presences. Each one emitted its own light, its own vibration, and at the same time they all seemed interconnected. They didn't speak, but their intentions were clear. I wasn't alone. They were there to guide me. One of these presences shone more brightly and stood out from the others. As I got closer, I recognized something about her, something that made me feel a rush of emotion and love. It was my grandfather, who had passed away more than 20 years ago. "Welcome, Calixta," he said, but not in words. His voice was a direct impression on my mind, filled with affection and familiarity. Upon recognizing my grandfather, a wave of emotion enveloped me. He looked different, brighter, but it was still him. There was no doubt. The same gentle smile, the same eyes that conveyed wisdom and love, but now amplified by an indescribable light that seemed to radiate from him. "Grandmother," I thought, although I didn't say it out loud. It was as if words were not necessary in this place. He smiled even more, and his presence emanated such pure love that I felt tears, or something similar to tears, form. "Yes, Calixta," he replied, but in a different way than I was used to. His words were not sounds, but they appeared directly in my mind, full of meanings that would transcend any language. "You are safe, don't be afraid." His touch, although not physical, enveloped me. It was warm, comforting, and made any trace of doubt or uneasiness disappear. I knew he was there to guide me, to take me to the next step of this mysterious journey. As we walked together, I noticed other beings of light around us. They didn't have human features, but they still looked personable, as if they each had their own identity. Their lights varied in intensity and colors, each unique but all deeply welcoming. Even though I had never met them in life, I felt an immediate connection with them, as if they were part of something bigger that we shared. "Who are they?" I asked, still without using words. "Souls who also have a role to play in your journey," my grandfather replied. "Some are here to support you, others just to testify. This is all part of what you need to learn." His words resonated deeply with me, as if they were ancient truths that I had always known but somehow forgotten. I looked around, and each being of light seemed to convey a unique message, although without using words. They were welcoming me, celebrating my presence there, and showing me that I had never been alone. Even in the most lonely moments on Earth, my grandfather held my hand, or so it seemed. He looked me in the eyes with a glow of love and seriousness. "Calixta, you are about to see things that will change everything you believe, but know this, you have always been loved, and everything you see has a greater purpose." I felt an indescribable calm. She was ready to continue, even though she didn't know exactly what would come next. The tunnel of light seemed to open even further ahead, and the feeling that something great was about to happen enveloped me completely. As we continued forward, The tunnel began to expand, turning into something much larger. It was as if the light around me was alive, breathing and pulsing, filled with a conscious energy that seemed to know everything about me. Each step, if you could call them steps, took me deeper into a space that had no end or beginning. The surroundings were not just beautiful, it was sublime, transcendent. I felt like I was entering a place that didn't belong to the physical world, but that, somehow, had always been present in my soul. Suddenly, everything around me became even brighter. The space opened completely, revealing what I can only describe as a realm of living light. There was no floor, walls, or ceiling. Everything was a vast infinity of colors that came and went like gentle waves. There were geometric patterns, intricate and constantly moving, that seemed to contain secrets of the universe. It was as if I was in the middle of a visual and emotional symphony, where each element conveyed love and wisdom. "We have reached the threshold," my grandfather communicated, still at a loss for words. Its light seemed to shine more brightly, as if it were in harmony with its surroundings. At that moment, I realized that there was a greater presence. It was different from anything I had ever felt before. It was not a figure that I could see or touch, but a consciousness that filled all space. This presence was the environment itself, but at the same time, it was personal, infinitely close, and deeply intimate. I knew immediately that I was before the Creator. Before I could formulate any thoughts or questions, I felt the Creator communicate with me. He wasn't like my grandfather, who used clear, direct language. The Creator transmitted pure knowledge, straight to my essence. It was as if all the answers I had ever sought were being placed before me, not as words, but as profound understandings. "Welcome, Calixta," the message came, filled with love so powerful that I cried. "Even though I had no physical body, you are part of everything, and everything is part of you." I was filled with the presence of the Creator, who was not something separate from me. It was as if every fiber of my being had been connected to the original source of all that is. There was no judgment, just acceptance, and a love so vast, it enveloped me completely. I knew at that moment I was home, and always had been. "You were created to be unique, a masterpiece of divine love," the Creator conveyed. "And now, you will see how it is all done." The mood began to change again, and I knew something even deeper was about to be revealed. The realm of light around me began to change. The colors that had previously moved in gentle waves now took on different shapes, as if they were rearranging themselves. I felt like I was being led to an even deeper, more intimate place. My grandfather, who until then had remained by my side, stopped and smiled at me. He didn't need to say anything. I knew this next step was something I had to try on my own. Suddenly, I was in a space that I can only describe as a cosmic studio. It was vast, but not like a physical place. Everything seemed to be in constant motion, pulsing with a living energy. The colors here were even more vibrant and complex, and there were geometric patterns that danced in the air, as if each one told a story or held a secret. In the center of this space, I felt the presence of the Creator intensify. The feeling of love I had ever experienced was now beyond anything I could comprehend. It was as if I were both an observer and a participant in a divine process. "Observe, Calixta," the Creator conveyed. "This is where it all starts." It was then that I saw something extraordinary, the birth of a soul. It was not a physical creation, but a weaving of light, love, and energy. Each strand seemed to contain a unique essence, a specific divine quality. The Creator showed how each soul was formed with a unique purpose. Some carried traits of courage, others of compassion, others of creativity and wisdom. Souls were not made en masse, as I had imagined before. Each one was a singular work of art, meticulously crafted with a care and love that left me in awe. "Each soul reflects an aspect of me," the Creator explained, "and together, they all form the whole." The scene changed, and I was led to understand something even deeper. I saw how these souls were sent into the physical world, not as punishment or testing, but as part of a greater plan of growth and learning. Every challenge we face, every joy, every pain, is part of a carefully orchestrated process, so that the soul expands and connects even more with universal love. It was at that moment that something shocking was revealed to me. "Hell as you understand it does not exist," conveyed the Creator. "Every soul carries my light within them, and even those who move away from me have the potential to return. There is no eternal damnation, just different paths of learning. This revelation left me astonished. Everything I believed about guilt, punishment, and eternal destiny was dismantled in an instant. I realized that the ultimate purpose of each soul was to contribute to the expansion of universal love and consciousness, and that all, without exception, were infinitely loved. When the Creator finished showing the process, I felt as if my own soul had been touched by that same divine love. I understood that my life, with all its pain and uncertainty, was part of something much bigger and more beautiful than I could ever imagine. Now you understand, the Creator conveyed softly, and there is more to be done. As I absorbed everything the Creator had shown me about the birth of souls and their purpose, a new understanding began to emerge. I felt the presence of the Creator intensify again, as if he was about to reveal something even more significant. The truths you have seen, Calixta, the Creator conveyed, are not new. They were always present, but many were distorted or hidden. The words did not come as judgment, but as fact conveyed with love and clarity. I was then flooded with visions, images that seemed to transcend time and space. I saw the first humans looking up at the sky in awe, trying to understand their place in the universe. I saw people seeking connection with the divine, but I also saw how fear and ignorance began to shape beliefs about creation, good and evil. One scene in particular had a profound impact on me. I have seen religious and spiritual leaders over the centuries, many of them well-intentioned, trying to convey messages of hope and love. However, I also saw how power and control began to creep into these teachings. Terms like eternal hell and damnation were used to create fear rather than convey the love and acceptance I had just witnessed. The hell that humans fear, the Creator conveyed, is not a place. It is an emotional and spiritual state, a disconnection that can be felt but is never permanent. Every soul carries within itself the ability to reconnect to love. The words echoed inside me, revealing something that seems so obvious now, but that I had never realized before. The pain and suffering we often associate with divine punishment are not punishments, but learning opportunities. The Creator has shown that even life's most difficult experiences are designed to help us grow, love more deeply, and reconnect with our true essence. I felt overcome by a wave of compassion and sadness at the same time. I thought about how many people live in fear of eternal judgment, believing they are unworthy of love because of mistakes or failures. And then, a clear message came. Tell them, Calixta, tell them they are loved, that each soul was created for a unique purpose, and that none are lost forever. My love has no end, and my forgiveness knows no limits. I didn't know how to process it all. Part of me was still stuck in the beliefs I had been taught, but the truth I was experiencing was undeniable. Religion, I realized, is an attempt to understand the infinite with finite tools. She often gets it right by inspiring love and connection, but she also gets it wrong by limiting the vastness of divine grace with dogma and rules. As I reflected on this, the Creator continued, "You are not here to condemn the beliefs of others, but to show that there is more love, more purpose, more light." The message was clear and overwhelming. Human souls are like stars, each with its own light, all destined to shine. None were condemned to eternal darkness. It was then that I realized that my journey there was preparing me for something, a mission. As the presence of the Creator continued to envelop every part of my being, I felt something shift. The space of living light around me began to vibrate differently, as if a transition was about to occur. Although I was immersed in the peace and love of that place, a new message was transmitted directly to my soul, clear and unmistakable. "You must go back, Calixta. There is a lot to share." I was astonished. To go back? The idea seemed unthinkable. How could I leave that place of perfection, where there was no fear, pain, or doubt? I felt complete for the first time in my life, and the idea of returning to the physical world, with all its limitations, was difficult to accept. I don't want to go back, I thought, knowing the Creator would hear. I can't leave all this behind. What if I fail? What if no one believes me? The answer came with an overwhelming calm, filled with a sense of purpose that completely disarmed me. You are not destined to fail. Your mission is not to convince, but to share. Each soul who hears your story will receive what they are ready to understand. Don't underestimate the power of a seed planted with love. The words resonated deeply with me, and I felt acceptance begin to take shape. It was as if the Creator was rekindling something that had always been inside me, but that I had forgotten. A strength, a courage that transcended any fear. It was then that I was struck by a vision. I saw myself back on Earth, talking to people, not as a grand or special figure, but as a bridge to something greater. I saw unfamiliar faces light up with hope, while words flowed from me with a clarity I didn't know I possessed. The vision gave me a sense of purpose, but also responsibility. Before you return, the Creator conveyed, remember that you are not alone. The love you felt here will always be with you. And when you are challenged, look within. Everything you need is already in your soul. Suddenly, I began to feel a force pulling me away from that place of peace and light. It was as if an invisible current was guiding me back to the body I had left behind. I looked at the Creator and the realm of light one last time, feeling tears of farewell, but also a strange sense of acceptance. You are infinitely loved, Calixta, the Creator conveyed. Never forget that. The return was abrupt, like being thrown into an icy river after comforting warmth. My body felt heavy, dense, and, for the first time, painful. I opened my eyes and saw bright lights, but now they were the spotlights of the operating room. I heard voices, but they were those of doctors, and exclaiming with relief, "We have a pulse. She's back." I was in the physical world again, but I was no longer the same. There was a weight in my chest, not from pain, but from the magnitude of what I had experienced. And along with that, there was a certainty. I had a mission, and my life would never be the same. When I opened my eyes in the operating room, everything seemed different. The lights were blinding, the sounds seemed distant, and the touch of the doctor's hands on my body felt strange, as if I didn't completely belong there. The contrast between the physical world and the realm I had just left was overwhelming. There, I had experienced a love and peace that didn't seem possible here, but here I was, alive again. "You are a miracle, Calixta," said the surgeon, clearly relieved. "We've been losing you." It was 7 minutes and 23 seconds without a pulse. We feared brain damage or worse, but here you are. I wanted to talk, explain what had happened, but I couldn't find the words. How could you describe the indescribable? How can I explain that? During those minutes, I had seen and experienced something that challenged everything I believed about life, death, and existence itself. Over the next few days, as I recovered in the hospital, I began to process what had happened. It wasn't easy. My mind, so used to looking for logical explanations, tried to dismiss the experience as delirium caused by anesthesia or a lack of oxygen to the brain. But my heart knew the truth. What I had experienced was real, more real than anything I had ever experienced. The first changes in me were subtle but profound. I started to see the world with different eyes. Every person I met seemed to shine in a way I had never noticed before. I realized that each one carried something unique, something divine. Even people who seemed lost or broken had a light inside them, even if it was hidden. The biggest transformation, however, was within me. Before, I was a practical, skeptical woman, always looking for concrete answers. Now, I knew that some truths transcend logic. I knew that each life has a purpose, that each soul is a masterpiece of the Creator. It gave me a new perspective on my own struggles and challenges. They were not punishments, but opportunities to grow, to learn, to love more deeply. It was an overwhelming change, but it wasn't easy. There were times when I doubted myself, when I wondered whether my experience would be accepted or ridiculed. But whenever I began to falter, I remembered the Creator's words, "You are not destined to fail. Just share." I decided that, even though I was scared, I needed to tell my story, not because I wanted to convince anyone, but because I knew there were people who needed to hear it, people who lived in fear, feeling unworthy of love or purpose. If my experience could bring hope to someone, then my mission would be accomplished. Over time, I started talking about what I experienced, first with close friends, then with larger groups. Some listened to me with skepticism, others with curiosity, but there were those who cried, who hugged me and said, I needed to hear that. And it was for these people that I continued. As the months passed, my life completely transformed. I was no longer the same person who walked into that operating room, skeptical and rational, certain that life was limited to what we could see and touch. Now, everything had a deeper purpose, a connection that went beyond what the eye could see. I saw people differently. Before, it was easy to label someone as good or bad, as worthy or not. Now, I knew that every person, regardless of their choices or circumstances, carried a divine spark within them. This realization changed how I treated others, with more patience, compassion, and, most of all, love. But despite the inner peace this new perspective brought me, I also faced challenges. Sharing my experience was scary at first. I was afraid of being seen as crazy or having my story dismissed as a daydream. Still, I remembered the Creator's words, "Just share." The seed planted in love will always find fertile soil. I started writing about my experience, detailing everything I had seen and felt, from leaving my body to meeting the Creator. The words flowed out of me like a torrent, as if every detail was still etched in my memory with crystal clarity. The act of writing was a kind of therapy, but also a calling. I felt like I was fulfilling my purpose by putting it on paper. When I finally felt ready, I started speaking publicly. First, for small groups of people, friends, family, members of local communities. Reception varied. Some listened with curiosity, others with skepticism, but there were always those who, with tears in their eyes, said, "You gave me hope." That was my fuel. Knowing that my experience could touch someone, make them feel loved and worthy, gave my new life meaning. My message was clear. Each person is infinitely loved, created with a unique and valuable purpose. The challenges we face are not punishments, but opportunities to learn and grow. And death, far from being the end, is just a transition to something bigger and more beautiful than we can imagine. Today, I still carry the memory of that place of light and peace and of the truths that were revealed to me. Not a day goes by without me remembering the Creator and His final message to me. "You are my masterpiece, a Calixta. Go and tell others they are too." These words echo in my soul, guiding me as I continue my journey. My mission is not to convince or convert, but simply to share. If my story helps someone feel the infinite love that I experienced, then my life will have served its purpose. Now, I wake up every day with a new sense of gratitude, knowing that I am alive not just to exist, but to love, grow, and help others see the divine light they carry within. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.